Ah! Ah.
He told me, he's like, you know, if you want to try Ruby at
If I claimed that these are the only two guns I owned, that I carried both of them regularly, how old would you think I am? So what role does the single stack 1911 in 45 ACP have in the modern shooters or the standard shooters stable now in the year of 2025? I probably can't answer that for, everyone. Can't answer that for the standard shooter, but I can answer it for myself, and that's what this video will hope to accomplish. This is my only 1911, but it's not the only 1911 I've ever had. All right, so the first one was actually this same gun, not this actual one, but the same model, same maker, 1911 mil-spec, right? Which is the same base gun as this. I bought it back in 2014, 2015, and that was at the low point, the lowest point in 1911 history. Around that time, everyone was contesting Glock's throne, right? You had Smith & Wesson M&Ps coming out, but you had options. Plastic Fantastic was taken over. These were falling by the wayside, and it was just folks were just finding, myself included, that a 9mm double stack striker fired gun was just offering a lot more features, a lot more reliability, a lot more shootability, a lot more performance for half the cost of what a good 1911 was going for. So I think I had it for a little bit, made some modifications to it, and then sold it, right? Sold it for about what I paid for it, around $500, maybe a little more than that. Next thing after that was a TSOS, which they're a big name now, but back then it was just some other imported gun, right? That gun was actually great. Now rolling, a picture of it. It was great because, it was great. It was reliable. I think it was more reliable than the Springfield, if I remember correctly. But it did have a rail. It was kind of a cool gun. I don't regret selling it, but I probably wouldn't mind keeping it either. It was a kind of fun gun. But at the time, I didn't really have, I was just trying stuff out. I was new to it. In 2016, I think I picked up a Kimber Custom TLE2, Kimber Custom 2. All right, it was all black. And that gun I thought was going to be like an heirloom gun, but it just did not run. And I did some forum research on it, and Kimber was that was right around when Kimber's quality control tanked. And so I was happy to sell that gun for what I paid for it. And that was the last bad taste I had for 1911s for the next 9-10 years. In that time, I had, cut my teeth on Glocks, but was starting to explore other stuff. I delved deeply into the double action, single action world. I learned to love my Beretta 92 that I was issued, and then, wholeheartedly endorsed them as a civilian, not just in 92 flavor, but in other stuff. I just thought it was the perfect blend of safety and precision in a trigger that you could get. Keep fast forwarding, got into instructing, started to get more and more ammo, got a lot more experience on different guns, just got to shoot a lot more. And I sold my USP 45 Tactical, and suddenly I had a whole bunch of 45 ammo and no platform to put it through. About 18 months ago, I picked up this thing. This, believe it or not, at one time was that same Springfield mil-spec 1911. Previous owner swapped everything but the frame, barrel, and slide for Ed Brown parts, and then got it cut for Novak sights, and sent it off to get completely recoated in MP3 at the same place that coats Ed Brown guns. So this is a Ed Brown edition of Springfield 1911. All right, it's a one-off, and kind of keep that in mind. So I'm kind of talking about the 1911 platform as a whole, but my experience is the ones I already mentioned, and this one in particular. So this isn't really a review because it's not really relevant to the average person. Someone else can't. It'd be hard pressed to find someone to recreate this exact build. And even then, there's no saying whether yours will work as well as this one has for me, right? So kind of just using this as an analog for 1911s as a whole. All right. So my collection practices, or the stuff, the reason why I obtain guns, I tend to obtain a gun and get super familiar with it, learns all its quirks, and then communicate that to the audience, right? Well, that's what the purpose of this project is anyway. However, I think I'm going to keep this gun. All right, I am not listing this up with the USP. I already moved it on, even the USB compact. Came, shot it, loved it, left it. Right. But let me just kind of talk to you about my impressions. Again, this is a one-off on this particular gun. Your mileage will vary because this is not a stock production gun. All right. So first, with 1911s, the main thing I was concerned about, and you should be as well, is reliability. This gun impressed me. Never had an issue, literally not a single malfunction with FMJs. They run 230 grain Federal HSTs completely fine. However, it is kind of magazine dependent. It came with an Ed Brown magazine that I don't have here, and two Springfield, the 7-round Springfield mags, right? The OEM runs. This will feed FMJs, 230 grain hollow points, and these 185 grain PMC rounds. All right, fed it fine. They say kind of like the go-to standard for 1911 mags are Wilson Combat or the Wilson Combat ones. These do not feed 185 hollow points well at all. They jam up. I typically get a setback or the bullet setback. They jam into it on the first round and every round after that. I still shoot them, but it's fine. However, my Met Gars here, which are half the price of Wilson Combats, also feed those 185 grain hollow points perfectly fine, right? So I have a whole bunch of the 185 grain stuff. Shooting at it, probably wouldn't stake my life on them, but they work well enough. So reliability was great. The bad taste in my mouth from Kimber was quickly washed away with this gun. Next, let's talk about the shootability. When I first picked this thing up and I was running it a lot, it was probably the most shootable gun. But I want to say that it was surprisingly shootable. I performed surprisingly well with it. When I was dry firing with it, when I was running it in competition, I ran 3 competitions with it, a USPSA, and when I was carrying it, shooting it, and dry firing with it a lot, I was performing just as well with this as I was with Berettas or Glocks. Right? It felt great. However, there's a caveat to that. I shot it well for about a year, and then I set it down, went back home. I moved back to where the rest of my gun collection resides, and I didn't touch this for about 5 months. And then I picked it up and I shot the intro footage with it, right? So no warm up, no dry fire, no practice draws, nothing. I just turned the camera on and tried to perform those drills. Now it could have been because I was rusty from not shooting a lot in general, or it could have been because, this is a 45, but I was not very impressive, or I was not very impressed with my performance in the video, but that's how you know it's honest, right? However, the audience, can take that even if you are a shooter, even if you are familiar with guns, switching to a 45 ACP 1911 will have a learning curve to it, and it won't feel as familiar as your Glocks. And that 45 will push you around a little bit if you're not being deliberate with it. And that's a big thing. If you want to perform well, you have to deliberately practice and deliberately shoot. It means you have to either consciously or subconsciously apply all the fundamentals to make that round hit where you want. That being said, when I was shooting it well, this thing performed great. This single action trigger is amazing, and is the reason why this platform has survived as long as it has. That single action trigger, which literally feels like a glass rod breaking. So reset. Is unmatched. Every trigger strives to be as good as a single action 1911 trigger, right? It is the best. And you have that safety that is unquestionable, right? Manual safety, you can press the trigger, and just being able to draw disengage the safety, take up whatever slack there is or pre-stage there is, and breaking that glass rod to send that round exactly where it needs to go is unmatched. Unmatched by any other trigger mechanism in the world. If you're working with it, if you're practicing with it, if you're comfortable with it, this gun will perform as well as any Glock 19 or Walther PDP or VP9 or SIG 320 or whatever, all right? Because all of those triggers are striving to match the safety of a manual safety and the precision of a single action trigger. Let's talk about the biggest detractor of this gun, especially in 45 ACP. 8 rounds in a modern mag, 7 in a traditional mag, right? So with this thing, you get 9 total with the one in the chamber. When you look at a platform this size and say, okay, you only have 9 rounds when a SIG 365 will get you 12 to 15 in something much, much smaller, it's a hard ask. Now I answer that with the purpose of even talking about capacity is the confidence you have that if you are attacked either by an armed robber or assailant or a mass shooter, that you can stop that threat. And I'm going to say with this gun, especially when I was putting my time in with it, and the combination of this trigger and its reliability and shootability and my confidence in these 230 grain HSTs that look like you're hucking an ashtray at someone, I felt confident that with 9 rounds, I could stop 1 or 2 attackers, right? A 2 bad guy gun. I think 4 each, especially with the ability to do a fast follow-up shot to the head box if possible. I never felt undergunned with 9 rounds of 45, all right, in this platform, knowing I could put it exactly where I wanted to, right? It was also relatively easy to throw in another single stack magazine in my pocket. So 9 plus 8 gets me 17 rounds. That is a Glock 17, right? So walking around with this thing, I was just as confident as I was carrying a Glock Model 45 or a Glock 17, right? My last impression, or my lasting impression of this platform, specifically this gun, right, is the sole reason it's going to stay in my stable, in my collection, all right? And that is how comfortable it is to carry and how easy it is to conceal. Crotch shot here. Sorry, let's pay extra for this, right? So, it's a J-frame, should disappear, and it does for the most part. But because of that, it doesn't torque this particular holster doesn't torque the grip in. It does print a little bit, right? Compare that to what a full-size 1911. By the way, Hunter Constantine belt here, dude, look at that, right? So, from the side, still there, you can still see it. I'm not gonna say it disappears on me, but for a full-size 1911, I mean, extremely comfortable to carry. I carry this in a t-shirt all the time, and I am not worried about printing. And you may call me crazy for this. I would say as comfortable or as easy to carry as my Glock 48, which is a single stack 9mm. And if the option is between a full-size 1911 with the firing system and action that I love and perform well with versus a single more round, maybe 2 more rounds of 9mm, well, I have made that decision. The 1911 came with me more often than not. That is the main reason why it will be staying in my collection. Everything that stays in my collection has to have a practicality to it. Even this gun, which is a beautiful classic Model 60, that it also makes a very good concealed carry gun. Right? And at the end of the day, all my guns have to have some sort of practicality to help justify their membership. All right, let's talk about what role it can serve for you. I've already talked about its carryability. It is an excellent EDC gun. Granted, you're willing to put the time and money because 45 ACB just does cost more than 9mm. Real quick, before I talk about those other issues, let's kind of talk about the cost of ammunition here, about the main detractor of 45. The cost of 1,000 rounds of, and I'm not going to go box. I'm going to say if you're buying in bulk, right? So 1,000 rounds of PMC 115 grain versus 1,000 rounds 45 ACP. This is 230, 240, I think, and this is about 340. So it used to be half the price, at the height of the ammunition, craze. 9mm. Anyway, I'm saying there's only $100 difference between 1,000 rounds of 45 versus 1,000 rounds of 9mm. Maybe up to 120. And if you're the type of person, and I think every gun owner should be, I would say if you're buying a gun, it should at any given time have 1,000 rounds ready to feed it. All right, especially if you're new. 1,000 rounds is 400 to take a class with, 200 to keep for an emergency, right? Combat load, right? So that's 600, and then that's 400 rounds to maintain proficiency with it over a year. All right. So at any given time, I think you should have at least 1,000 rounds for your gun, especially if you're new. Anyway, so with that being said, with the unit of 1,000 rounds, $150 or $100 to $150 isn't that big of a gap. I'm not saying you get a huge benefit for that $150, and if everything else being the same, I would go with the cheaper option. But I'm just saying, in the grand scheme of things, $100 to $150 over 1,000 rounds isn't that big of a difference. That settles the practicality aspect of it, that the self-defense aspect of it, the everyday carry, concealed carry aspect of it, roll for it. Let's talk about some others. One, collectibility, and just kind of appreciation for hand craftsmanship, right? That is something that this gun, that a tuned or hand-built 1911 can do for you that a Glock simply can't. A lot of 1911s are one-offs, and if they're not one-offs, they're pretty freaking cool just in and of themselves. They have a very, to me, tangible cool factor to it over, fantastic plastic. At one point, I will hand this down. I said I'll keep it, right? So it may be an heirloom gun, and this is something that I would be proud to hand off to any offspring I have, because, again, it has withstood the test of time. It has survived 2015, which was the brink of obsolescence for 1911s, and it's been around for more than 100 years, and I can easily see it for going for another 100 years. It will always be a timeless classic. Hopefully it doesn't pawn it, but this type of gun, right, will only increase in value, whereas we've all seen Glocks not, right? I would feel much more proud to hand this off to, any offspring of mine on a graduation day, wedding day, firstborn day, whatever, than I would say, a Glock. Right? This gun, or even a gun like this, because of their timelessness, because of their craftsmanship, they just, I think, more fitting of a significant gift like that than, say, a standard Glock, right? So they've already proven themselves in practicality. It is something that they could carry around and use, but this just adds a little more punch than something you could get, at your local gun store for $450, right? Second is the gaming aspect of it. If you are a shooter, if you are a competition shooter, especially, single stack is a lot of fun. And I know a lot of people, first of all, carry optic is flooded with everyone. It's the hardest division to make a name for yourself in. Whereas if you're new to shooting and you want to make a name for yourself, if you want that, C class, B class, A class, master class, grandmaster, whatever. I'm just saying it's a little easier, and I think a little more fun to try to accomplish that in either production or single stack or revolver. It's easier, it's more fun. If you've already solved the EDC practical tactical stuff, I think the gaming aspect of using a 1911 is a pretty big case for having one of these in your stable. All right. So anyway, those are the three rules. Collection, still EDC and EDC and protection, collection, and as a gamer gun. That's how this gun is justifying its existence in my collection, and I think it could do the same for you. Anyway, Thanks for coming to my, my talk. I appreciate if you made it all the way through. It's been a while since I put out a video, and I wish I had more footage of this, and hopefully I'll be able to make some more videos in the future. It just kind of, these days it's taking me a long time to come up with time, to think of an idea, to have enough passion to make it happen. And so, we'll see if this thing fades out or if I keep going with it. Anyway, thank you guys. Stay safe and take care.